Happy Valentine's Day. I am not getting ready for a date. I am getting ready to record some content. Then I'm probably gonna go see the Captain America movie. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kanan. I'm an aspiring Christian music artist, and I love sharing stories about my life and the journey that I'm on in music and in my walk with the Lord. Here you'll be able to see videos like this where we get ready together, extended covers of music, teasing some original songs, vlogs, and even more. But with it being Valentine's Day, I thought we would talk about love, or lack thereof. So today we're going to be talking about the truth about never dating before. I am 22 years old, and I have never been on a date. I've never had a boyfriend, so my dating experience is a little limited. But I feel like that puts me in a pretty good position to talk to people about that. I also just want to preface this by saying that I understand that I am just 22 years old and that there are people that have been single longer than me probably going, shut up, kid. That's valid. I totally understand it. This is just my experience and more for the girls around my age who may be doing the same thing and maybe make these choices in their life. I guess the best place to start would be in middle school, where all new and embarrassing love begins. I wouldn't say I have anything too embarrassing. I feel like as girls, we start liking boys a lot earlier than boys start liking girls. And so then middle school hits and we're all pretty much on the same page. Well, that's not true. But all that to say, I think one of the misconceptions about never dating before is that you just had straight tunnel vision, that you never liked boys, you never dealt with any of those problems or anything like that, and that is just absolutely not true. In fact, I think that the girls who have never dated before are some of the biggest romantics. It was very interesting to learn from my peers the way people viewed dating. So when I was still in public school, like late middle school and early high school, I would not say I had people just knocking down my door. That was an interesting thing to navigate. It definitely did feed into some insecurities that I had of myself, but looking back, I am so glad that I don't have near as many embarrassing stories about my dating history. I was very outspoken about my faith throughout my whole public school education. I think that made people a little bit scared. Being a musical theater nerd, all of these things did not play into my favor when it came to the boys. And so dating was just never really something that I had to deal with. And then from my sophomore year on, I was homeschooled. And so the dating pool got very, very small. I was out on the road with my family. If you don't know, I grew up singing in a family gospel group. And so my life was filled on the road. I was the only person in my graduating class. But by that time, honestly, I was pretty okay with it. But I remember when I was like 16, I went to my parents and I'm like, so, hypothetically, like, am I allowed to date? Yeah, I guess so. And so, I think my family was a little apprehensive when I started asking that question of, like, can I date? That I was just gonna go full force and start dating like crazy. And that really wasn't a problem. In fact, they had to say, Kanan, why aren't you really, like, dating? Why are you closing yourself off to this? While I was on the road with my family, I started listening a lot to something called The Porch, which is a ministry in Dallas, Texas. I used to listen to their sermons on YouTube all the time, and most specifically, Jonathan Pokluda and David Marvin. And a lot of their sermons were on dating, because that's what a lot of young adults are dealing with right now. I learned a lot. And it really shifted my perspective on what it means to date and what it means to be romantically involved with someone. And because of that, I really quit worrying about dating. I remember at one point, my dad asked me, he was like, Kanan, why are you not, like, dating people? And I was like, well, first of all, no one's asked me. Second of all, I really don't care about dating right now. And it was because my perspective had shifted to where I believe that you date with intention. And that can scare a lot of people. When you say that you're dating with the intention of marriage, that does not mean that the first person you go on a date with is the person that you're gonna marry. It just means that you're dating with a goal in mind. You're taking applications for the job. And at 16 and 17 years old, I knew that that was not what I wanted. Sure, I was a kid, I wanted to hang out with people and be social, but I knew that that was not something that I wanted for a very long time. I told them, I said, this is something that I want to just do for myself, and where I feel that the Lord is leading me. I really don't even want to consider dating until like the minimum age where I would be okay with it going somewhere. And for me, that age was 21. And so I spent my teenage years not worrying about it. And I know some people are going to be like, well, just because you date someone, that doesn't mean that they're automatically your boyfriend or anything. And to that, I say, absolutely. My family was even saying, like, just go hang out. There's nothing wrong with hanging out with a guy and going and doing something and having fun together. It doesn't have to go anywhere. And I'm like, that's what friendship is. If it's not going to go anywhere, if we just enjoy each other's company and we're not romantically involved, then to me that's not a date. That's just my friend. And maybe that's the wrong take to have, but that's the take I did have and do. Also, not to be like, I'm not like those other girls, but it's always been very easy for me to make friends with guys and to have full-on conversations with them and not worry about anything romantic. Just because I've grown up, I have 4 older brothers, I'm around a lot of guys. Growing up in music, I've had all these friends that are adults, and so I'm talking to all the married couples, so talking to guys was not a problem for me, and having male friendships was not really a problem. And the reason I kind of want to talk about this is just because I want people to know, especially young girls, that it is okay to not date. And when I made that decision that I really didn't want to date until the minimum age where I'd be okay getting married, it really didn't change anything. It didn't become a problem. Now, we could just say this is an excuse, but I like to think of it as that God honored my decision, and maybe he was leading me to that decision, and so that just wasn't a problem. I didn't have guys asking me out. I didn't face anything as far as that went. And this is not woe is me. I'm completely okay with that decision that I made. I think if like elementary and middle school Kanan saw the decisions that high school and college Kanan made, it would be very, very shocked. But now 22-year-old me is so grateful for that. And if that isn't your story as far as dating goes, that doesn't make it wrong, that doesn't make it sinful. It just means that that's an option. I would also say I was pretty closed off to any minute advances that I saw from guys in my high school days. I didn't really like the idea of talking stages. I thought, if you want to get to know me, take me out on a date. And I'm not dating right now, so there's no need to do that. It doesn't mean that those years for me were just such a breeze, because I did struggle with loneliness, but I struggled with loneliness in just friendships in general. I really had a hard time making friends that were girls, and I knew I didn't want like a boyfriend at that time. So there were definitely some struggles with loneliness. But I was also homeschooled in those years. So then the age of 21 hit, and everybody's like, okay, are you just gonna go crazy now? Are you gonna start dating? And I'm like, I'm open to it, but right now I'm pretty content with the way things are. And it didn't become a problem. At age 21, nothing really changed for me, but I was okay with that, because my focus has been on music, building ministry, building my life. And I'm fighting with that mentality that I have to have all my ducks in a row before this other aspect of my life comes into play. But that's kind of the mentality that I've had in my life. So now at age 22, I've been pretty content with the way things are going. But let me tell you about how some things have changed when I least expected it. So at this point, I'm like, I'm content with where I'm at. I'm still figuring out life. I've got friends like I never have before. I'm good. So backstory. As I mentioned in my previous video, I've been involved with acting in the past, and I don't really get to stretch those legs a lot right now, but I am on some casting sites for open calls, just always seeing what's out there. And so there's a faith-based casting site that I'm on, and I never hear anything out of that account. One day, I get this email, and it says, this casting director has seen your account and wants you specifically to apply for this job. Okay, well, let's check out what this is. It says, we want you to apply for this new reality dating show from the creators of Love on the Spectrum. I know what you're thinking. I was like, huh? But as I kept reading, it said, we're creating a new reality dating show for people that have never dated before. And as far as I know, they didn't ask that when I made my account for that website. So my thought is, how do they know? So when you see that show come out, know that I got that email. And to answer the question you might be thinking about, no, I'm not doing that show. But I thought it was funny. And so a couple days go by, and I tell my parents about this story. I'm like, guess what email I got in my account the other day? As I'm telling that story, I get one of those mass texts from one of my favorite speakers, again, Jonathan Bakluta actually, saying, hey, be on the lookout, guys, because I'm creating a matchmaking service. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird that that happened while I'm telling this story. Moving on, coup d'etat. Oh, and then a few weeks later, I get a text from somebody that I haven't spoken to in 10 years. And they're like, hey, Kanan, I hope you're doing well. I love how you share about your faith. And if you were up for it, I have a friend that I think would be perfect for you. First of all, incredibly honored that that's the case. But the fact that these things have happened really close to each other, I'm like, what is going on? Then I go to Passion Conference a month ago. And I met so many cool and new people there. I met this girl and we were talking about one of the speakers that was going to be there, Ben Stewart. And she says, oh, his book, Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, is so great. I don't think anything about it. It's a very popular book, but she says, have you ever read it? I'm going to bring it to you tomorrow. We've just met. And I'm like, okay, that is so crazy that this dating topic has been brought up. Let me tell you why. And a lot of times when I've told people about the decisions that I've made when it comes to dating, in the back of my mind, I don't really think that they understood. But when this person who I had just met heard my story and heard the decisions that I made, they told me that it was admirable and wise. And I don't need anyone's validation except the Lord's, but it felt pretty good. And honestly, as all this stuff started happening, I'm like, no, God, I'm doing okay. I don't need this right now. And then I had some of my friends in my group that were like, let's find Kanan a man this trip. And I'm like, let's not. And if there's any downside to any of this, maybe I've become a little too comfortable in my singleness. Thankfully, that's all died down a little bit. And so even if you ask me right now, it's something that I'm much more open to than I was in the past, but it's still not something that I'm super eager about. But don't get me wrong, I love love. And one day I do hope to be a godly girlfriend and then godly wife. But also I'm good right now. Maybe you're a young Christian out there in your middle and high school years, and seeing everyone date has been kind of difficult. Or maybe your story could not be more different from mine. That's okay. I guess my main point behind this video is that God is in the details, and that God does care about who you date, who your friends are, how you interact with the world. And if you feel like it would be best for you right now in this season of your life to not date, and that's not something everyone understands, that's okay. And I know we hear the married people all the time tell people that want to be in a relationship that your singleness is a gift. Your singleness is a gift. But take it from a single person. Your singleness is a gift. And I just want to clarify that in this time of singleness, even after I made that decision, it didn't mean that I just automatically stopped liking boys. It just meant that I was playing the long game. I really love doing these little chit-chat videos because as much as I love to sing, I also love to tell people about my life. And sometimes in that short form content, we don't get to talk as much. So who knows, maybe one day we'll be doing these chit-chat videos, getting ready before a concert, or getting ready on tour together. That would be really cool. We live in a generation that is really, really focused on dating. And I just know that in this time of singleness, I just really want to grow close to the Lord and build that friendship and relationship before having to bring somebody else in. And it's not just my love-struck generation. I mean, the older generation is all about it too. And that doesn't mean there has to be all this pressure when you do choose to date. It just means that if you like this person and you want it to go further, it can. I also knew that for me, I'm a very emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I did not want to give myself unnecessary heartbreak at a really young age. So I guess the truth about choosing not to date as a Christian is that it is as fun as you make it. You have all the time to spend with the Lord that you want. You can do what you want to do, go where you want to go, make the decisions that you want to make. All, of course, under the umbrella of what God is asking you to do. And as my life changes, and as this season possibly changes, I don't think I would have it any other way. In conclusion, don't be afraid to bring God into the conversation on what dating should look like for you. He writes the best stories, and he doesn't withhold any good thing from his kids. If you enjoyed this video and want to follow along with my life and my journey through music, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you want even more content, covers, and some teasers of original music, make sure to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Happy Valentine's Day.